Bismillah Rahman Rahim, dear viewers, Assalamu Alaikum. I am your host Faisal Raza Khan and you are watching Foresight. Viewers, just recently, World Bank launched its 10 years new country partnership framework. This framework is for the financial year 2026 to 2035. It has a worth of at least $20 billion with focus on 6 crucial areas, particularly when it comes to education, health, information technology, energy, climate change and agriculture. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif termed World Bank's decision as a landmark one and said that CPF or Country Partnership Framework is a timely intervention to support Pakistan to cope up all challenges, the dire challenges, particularly the economy, poverty and climate change. World Bank program aims to support inclusive growth and sustainable development in Pakistan by focusing on improving business climate, private sector investments, revenue generation and efficient government spendings. The World Bank Vice President for South Asia, Martin Reza, believes that Pakistan can grow 8% at 8% of the GDP or the gross domestic product if it doubles its investments and ensure the best utilization of its assets, the financial and human resources. World Bank has emphasized the need for structural reforms, transparency and accountability to ensure the successful implementation of country partnership framework. However, there are lots of challenges which are still persisting. The first one is the governance issue. The second is the corruption and then the frequent political instability. We will try to explore the key areas of this vital partnership between Pakistan and the World Bank and how it is potentially impacting Pakistan's economy, how crucial it is the World Bank's role in supporting Pakistan's socio-economic development and what are the challenges lie ahead. To discuss this very important segment of Pakistan's economy, we have in our studios Dr. Usman Chauhan. He is the advisor on economic affairs to the president of Center for Aerospace and Security Studies, CASS. Most welcome to you, sir. Thank you very much for your presence.
Thank you.
And we have with us Dr. Shuja Farooq. He is Director Research at Pakistan Institute of Development Economics, PIDE. Most welcome to you, Dr. Sahab. Thank you very much for your presence.
Thank you, sir.
And online join us Dr. Hassan Zafar. He is the Political Economy Analyst and he is joining us from Lahore. Most welcome to you, sir. Thank you very much for joining us.
My first question. Thank you very much for having me, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. My first question to you, Dr. Shuja. World Bank has officially launched its new Pakistan country-specific partnership framework for financial year 2026-2035. Aligned with the Udan Pakistan, the National Economic Transformation Plan with clear, tangible and ambitious 10 years targets and the provision of having $20 billion of funding resource, primarily focusing on the business climate, private sector investments, revenue generation, through tax reforms, efficient government spendings and plug in the loopholes. So how do you categorize and how do you see this whole scenario?
Thank you. If you look the history of World Bank, it's a good technical source as well as the financial source. And we have a long collaboration with the World Bank. So broadly, you can conclude that World Bank have two main objectives. One is to extreme end poverty and hunger. So they have a vision up to 2030 and the second is sustained inclusive growth where we seek the growth and per capita rise of income of the bottom 40% of the class. So usually if you see the domain of the World Bank, it is not limited to soft loan that is mostly comprises on interest free or very soft interest. It's some sort of technical assistance as well.
Definitely.
Where you know that besides other institutes like IMF etc. or ADB, they prompt that we should move towards certain reforms. So you can see that in this $20 billion package, there are a lot of reforms where they seek that, because I have read this document, so they have rightly identified our challenges, that first, you know, that our human capital that is quite poor. So we have to move toward human capital where we have to improve our education, health, learning, poverty, and especially food security. Second, you know that we are facing certain, you know, that economic crisis where you can see that there is current account deficit, there is fiscal deficit. So this program foresee that we have to improve our tax to GDP ratio. On current account deficit, you know that our exports are stagnant over the last 20 years as compared to other countries. So definitely we have to improve our competitiveness in productivity, whether it is agriculture or whether it is manufacturing. So I think this is a good initiative for the economy of Pakistan, where we should seek this program beyond just a financial support, and we should welcome the reforms in all these areas, and we should welcome and we should initiate these reforms. So without reforms, you know that unfortunately lot of donor money has come in Pakistan, but that remained mere to loan. And our challenges remain the same.
Definitely, your point well taken. Dr. Chauhan, in an interview by the World Bank Vice President for South Asia, Martin Reza, suggested that Pakistan can attain 8% of the GDP growth and have potential to become $1 trillion economy. Right now, it's hovering around 375 billion. If it doubles the investments and show the best utilizations of its assets, financial resources, human capital, when according to the Finance Ministry, Pakistan's average investment to GDP ratio is lowest in the region, and growth rate expected to sustain 3%. But the government is actually determined to have that growth rate to 3.6%, tax to GDP ratio to 15%, with increased revenue collection and bring more investment. This is what World Bank is stressing upon. So how do you see this optimism with the World Bank, although World Bank chiefs are also saying that it's a risky one when it comes to Pakistan, different sort of investments. But they are very hopeful as well, because the real-time macroeconomic situation, and they are hopeful as well that the microeconomic situation will also be built up. How do you see?
Yes, you're right. There's two parts to your question. The first is, would raising investment in the way that the South Asia head says actually lead to GDP growth? The answer is absolutely, because the formula is consumption plus investment plus government spending plus your exports minus your imports. So the main missing link in this whole formula is investment, and the second missing thing is exports. But they're often connected, because if you produce enough surplus from investments you have made, you would export it. And the more you export, the more you generate, so the more you invest. So there's a positive relationship between the two missing links. Our economy is by and large consumption driven. About 90% plus is consumption driven, and we have a negative on the net exports because we import about twice as much as we export. And government spending is filling in the remainder of the gap, but government spending itself is a contentious issue because there are privatization discussions and all these other movements of shrinking down government, etc. So I agree on this in principle that investment is the key, and it's not just fixed capital but also human capital, and that leads to dividends in the future. That's what we're aiming for. The second part of your question I would address in this way, that even if the World Bank says that Pakistan might be risky, the truth is that the World Bank is at a stage now where it needs to make itself relevant in the world. Because many countries that it had been giving and prescribing things to have actually developed, and they don't come to it for business anymore. Many countries try to avoid this whole Bretton Woods thing altogether. They don't go to the IMF, they don't go to the World Bank. So the World Bank has to sell something to someone. And there are a few captive countries, Ukraine, Argentina, Kenya, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and you got to sell them something. So you might as well make it a binding, long-term oriented thing where you're investing in things outside just the pure fiscal deficit, current account deficit matrix. You're trying to invest in things beyond that. So it's actually the World Bank that needs to make itself relevant in the 21st century, especially when the Trump administration is thinking about slashing and burning all parts of the government, including US aid. So I actually put the onus on them rather than on us.
Definitely, your point well taken. Dr. Hassan, what about ongoing structural reform process, removing the bottlenecks and navigating through all economic hurdles under International Monetary Fund, IMF, in which World Bank is also assisting in enhancing the efficacy of Pakistan's tax system and fostering a more favorable business environment, but then strictly adhering the governance benchmarks, fiscal discipline, and bringing investments in critical for effective policy implementation and to yield fruitful outcomes, but frequent political instability yet a huge hurdle. So how do you see the whole situation right now?
Thank you very much, Faisal Saab. We have been talking about this thing for quite some time now. This combination of political instability and tax burden and the financial discipline. If we see the overall situation right now, I think financial discipline is quite in place at the moment. And the indicators are that we have lowest inflation rate in last 10 years. There is some talk about curtailing government spending, but we don't know because in real time we cannot see shrinking of the government size right now. So that part remains to be addressed. But what we can see, the inflation comes down, and the balance sheet looks all right at the moment. But political instability and terrorism, this combination is quite challenging, disastrous, if you allow me to say, because on our western borders, things are not cooling down, and internally, although things look quiet at the moment, but yes, there is always something lurking beneath the surface. So that is the kind of, but even if it is not there in reality, but the perception outside of Pakistan is that there is political instability in Pakistan. Now, how to fight it? Maybe we need more robust kind of diplomacy. We need to encourage visits of the foreign investors in Pakistan so they can come and see that things are all right, and there is financial discipline. You can show that financial discipline on the paper to anybody outside Pakistan, but how to persuade people outside Pakistan that yes, we have political stability here, and but how the world media talks about Pakistan if there is one terrorist attack
Pakistan. So that is also a very important aspect, that Pakistan is secure, and there are lots of opportunities here. But unfortunately, you are absolutely right that in outer framework or abroad, there would be another picture which is portrayed, unfortunately. But Pakistan is more peaceful, stable right now, because we have just conducted this Cricket Champions Trophy here. So, Dr. Hassan, how much crucial the World Bank's role in financing the multitude of the programs in health and education sector when it comes to have the trained and skilled and educated human capital, with focus on education support by 12 million students in primary and the secondary education to end the learning poverty, healthcare support to 50 million people, child stunting, nutrition and population services, modern contraceptives for 30 million women, food and nutritional security for 30 million people, while water, sanitation and hygiene facilities for 60 million people. It is the overall benchmark of the this country partnership framework. So how do you see this overall ambitious target for the 10 years, and if that is going to be achieved in letter and spirit, what would be the ultimate picture in future?
Ultimate picture should be good in future, because World Bank's participation in all these sectors that you have highlighted, the social sectors, education, healthcare, nutrition, clean water, we have seen that over the past several decades, World Bank has helped Pakistan, assisted Pakistan in all these areas, especially women's education, child care, and contraceptives, all these things. The main challenge remains the implementation of the policies and the right spending of the money that is given by the World Bank. So hurdles in this kind of spending are the local government governance challenges, because that is where this money is utilized in local district level dispensaries, health centers, primary education, government education institutions. So their management and their upgradation remains a challenge. How quickly we can improve it, upgrade it, that will yield the results. But yes, that the money that comes from the World Bank is always very important in these specific sectors, for sure.
Well taken, Dr. Chauhan. A World Bank's poverty alleviation program through microfinancing and the social safety nets like Benazir Income Support Program funding, then increasing the livelihoods, the rural development, financial stability, sustainable economic growth to have inclusive economic opportunities, and a productive private sector investment. We are focusing on that for job creation. But do you not think that due to escalating food and the fuel prices, diminishing actually the purchasing power of the people and triggering poverty while also turning the economic recovery a bit slower?
Absolutely. What has happened in the last 5 years is that there is a new category in the third world called the new poor. People who might be 20 years old now, who have never seen the poverty that they're experiencing now because they were born middle class. But the precarity and the shifting of the income quintiles has made it so that middle class has been shredded everywhere, including actually in the developed world as well. And what that means is there's a category of new poor, and that means that their incomes cannot cope up with the cost of living issues. But as far as the World Bank goes, I think that there are some targeted programs that they work on which are very valuable. At the same time, I believe that in the long run, our provincial governments can more than carry the day. In terms of funding, there's no issue. In terms of execution, there's plenty of issues. And that has to do with ghost schools, ghost employees, ghost doctors, that sort of thing. But that principal agent problem also exists with World Bank programs, because the World Bank people are not running around in the desert building schools. They outsource this, or they contract with local partners to help them do that stuff. And there again, the principal agent problem is the same. So my biggest request to all stakeholders is to focus on the execution, make sure at the field level things are done right, then the funding is not as big an issue.
Your point well taken. Dr. Shuja, what about energy sector reforms and World Bank support in active hydropower projects like Turbela and Dasu that had augmented Pakistan's electricity generation capacity and alleviated the power shortages? But the problem still exists to the issues related to the governance inefficiencies, then the electricity theft and transmission losses. When World Bank has the prime focus on the clean energy by enabling of 10 gigawatt of the renewable energy capacity, and they have reservations as well when it comes to the power transmission lines and the power theft and all that. So how to cope up such an issue in the policy dynamics and overall practical implementation and all that?
Faisal Sahab, energy, I think energy is big than economy.
It is.
If you look the last 20 years, because we have made lot of losses, we have calculated and they are more than 22 trillion the amount we have taken in terms of debt. So right now, if you look the issues of circular debt, the cost of energy prices, I think is significant. Our middle class and poor people, they are facing energy poverty. And you know that our exports are also compromised, as well as our business activities due to high, you know, that energy prices.
If the cost of doing business is high, so
if we see the role of World Bank, they have given us lot of advices earlier. You can see these IPPs, and you can see there is certain, you know, that division on the power side. For example, there is production, there is transmission, and there is distribution. So I support the argument of Dr. Chauhan that you know that we have to seek these advice and push toward implementation reforms. For example, you know that we have IPPs. Again, you know that we made certain weak enforcement of contracts. So for example, we have 45 that 1000 megawatt capacity, but our generation transmission is just limited to 25,000, and in summer that our demand is just 9,000. So we have to align all these things. Regarding the second part of your component, yes, we are facing a lot of environmental degradation. So we welcome that we have to move from thermal and coal toward renewable sources, like for example hydro. You are
mentioned talking about environmental degradation. So, Dr. Shah, Pakistan is continuously actually experiencing the climate change induced disasters that not only the cause of destruction but also a slowdown of the economic growth as well. So how much imperative is to have the climate resilient aspects of all sectors, including agriculture, infrastructure, having transportation like green transportation system, the clean energy, you are talking about clean energy, better air quality as well, promoting decarbonization as under this new $20 billion CPF, suggests the climate resilience against the floods and disasters by supporting at least 75 million people in Pakistan. So how do you see overall whether we are on the right track going towards the green environment and the climate resilience?
Faisal, we require a lot of push in this climate area, because we are among the top 10 countries who are facing the climate risk.
According to German watch, we are really vulnerable.
And you can see that in 2022 flood, we make a lot of losses, where you can see 70% of the Sindh that was, struggled. And you can see smog in Lahore. If you look the history of Beijing, they took 6-7 years through a very comprehensive concrete policy of shifting industry, lot of regulations, and then they were able to finish the smog. So that this area is quite crucial for sustainable inclusive growth, whether it is industry, whether it is agriculture, and whether it is our citizens' life.
Definitely, we have to emphasize on that, because that is the crucial thing to sustain.
So there are certain estimations that for climate resilience, adoption, mitigation, we require some $350 billion investment to make our industries competitive, to make them green economic, as well as that to save the lives of the people. So we require a lot of investment. So for example, I think that's good that where World Bank would help us to that right now we are facing irrigation challenges, water is quite scarce, so certain that.
But we require climate investments. That is
climate
the
investment,
area.
and we may calculate. So that carbon, we may develop carbon bank. So we attract those that investment definitely
into the carbon credits particularly.
Credits, yes.
You are absolutely right. Dr. Chauhan, World Bank stressing upon information technology led digital economic growth. With uninterrupted digital connectivity and financial inclusion central to the many of the targeted outcomes. When Pakistan has over 2.5 million active freelancers with 0.7 million full-time professionals, that's 12.8% of the global freelance workforce. Pakistan's IT exports has risen over the time by 28%, reaching 1.86 billion in the first half of the financial year 2025, with the potential to attain to $3.5 billion at the end of this fiscal year. Government took transformative initiative by introducing Digital Nation Act 2025. So how much important is to Pakistan become a digital nation, practically a digital nation, what the World Bank is stressing upon, and this is the key to success.
Yes. Being a digital nation would be hugely advantageous, because it would allow us to leapfrog in certain ways, certain paths steps along the development trajectory. If you can just jump into the 21st century from the 18th century, that would be a pretty nice thing. But actually now the IT investments that we require must be forward-looking. They should be looking 50 years ahead. And what I mean by that is that it's not simply adding electronic capacity and servers to try to enhance freelancing work, but actually the transformation in technology itself is so rapid that we have AI breathing down our neck now. And AI has the potential to decimate the freelancing industry in the developing world. All the business process outsourcing stuff can be totally taken away within a few years at the rate that AI is increasing at. So if you are investing in technology, it should be servers, it should be hardware, but it should have a focus towards the next stages of technology which are rapidly coming upon us, rather than trying to catch up to 20 years old economic models.
Obviously, you are absolutely right. Dr. Hassan, Pakistan is frequently facing the threats of climatic changes and resultantly the natural disasters like floods, drought, desertification, water scarcity, sea intrusion, earthquakes, and all others we are facing from many decades. Now, such phenomena are real hurdles in sustainable development. World Bank delegation not only acknowledged but also stressed upon climate resilient investments, as Dr. Shuja is stressing upon that it is required now in agriculture, in flood mitigation, and addressing the water scarcity. What are your thoughts on that? How we can gather these fundings? Because we have attended lots of conference of parties under the United Nations framework of climate change, but unfortunately those are just the climate negotiations and never ever materialize the funding. So how we can secure these fundings from the different partners internationally?
Faisal Saab, I think this is a very serious challenge because as the geopolitical situation and the security situation is developing in the West, particularly Europe, and that was the place where the funding for environmental issues and these challenges was coming from. I think this is a very serious matter because as our panelist pointed out before, we are amongst the most affected nations in the world when it comes to the climate changes. We have floods, where we remember 2022 floods, we have temperature rise, we have water scarcity, and then we have deforestation. So there is a combination of many things in this area. I think we should try to launch a program which encourages our own people to contribute towards it, towards careful use of energy, careful use of all our resources, water conservations. We hear that the government is indulging in lawmaking. High Court is issuing orders that water should be carefully used. For example, there was a High Court order that people should not be washing their cars at home. Same thing happened in Rawalpindi in Islamabad. Same thing happened in Lahore. But the implementation remains one thing. When we talk about implementation, Faisal Saab, in many areas, I think Dr. Chauhan hinted towards a very important thing, and that is the digital monitoring system. We need to have good monitoring system. We will have to shift from traditional management system towards digital system. We will need to use more cameras to monitor things. We have experienced this thing when these safe city cameras were installed in Lahore and the challans were sent to home. Traffic improved in Lahore. I don't know whatever happened to that thing. Later on, it's the same situation again. But we have experienced that digital monitoring can improve things. So we will have to go towards digital.
Dr. Hassan, here it is very important, and another intervention, that World Bank support to Pakistan's economy and socio-economic development is absolutely perfect, no doubt about that. But when it comes to the financial assistance, do you not think that it would contribute Pakistan's escalating debt burden and increase the dependence on the foreign loans and would affect actually the economy in the long run, not in the short term, but in the long run? Its structural reform process would not address the long-term economic vulnerabilities, because these are the areas where we have to, when Dr. Shuja was stressing upon drastic reforms into Pakistan's economic system. So that is very important if we sustain our economic development in future.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying, that we need to be cautious about things. I'm a little apprehensive about any long-term assistance from these donor agencies world over, because as things change, and we have seen things changing in the previous 5 to 6 weeks, how the United States has withdrawn from the Paris Agreement, how they have pulled back from some of the United Nations organizations, that they are not interested. So where the money was actually coming from, United Nations was the main contributor towards these things. And if they are not interested, they are leaving the world uh, problems to their own. Uh, Handle it yourself. That is the attitude. So we need to be on our feet. We need to learn how to handle our own issues, and probably run a campaign that we can generate funds locally to fight these menaces. Otherwise, if we keep looking outward,
Solutions to the homegrown solutions to the domestic problems is the best solution for Pakistan rather than just relying upon them. Dr. Shuja, whether the World Bank delegation recent visit, not a significant move in 2 decades, because there are lots of parameters of this visit as well. So it has yielded lots of positive results and encouraging signals to the of Pakistan's economic stability, and help incentivize the foreign and the local investors to pursue the unlimited investment opportunities in lots of key areas. So do you not think that such kind of visits are actually giving lots of hopes to have new opportunities inside the country, have more investments, so that we can generate more jobs and have to reduce poverty and all of that?
I think this document is a good base for our long-term vision, because now for the next 10 years we have certain commitment in our various areas where we can improve the life of people, where we can improve our economy, as well as that we can reduce our climate challenges. So that now world is living with innovations and the ideas. Resources are available. So now let's, I think funding is available. Let's lot of I think commitment is required, and we are seeking from the government side. There are certain documentation as well. For example, you can see the UDAN document, where that is almost similar sort of things, where we have to take certain policy actions and that implementation reforms. So I think we require lot of now reforms process, structural reforms, through which we can maximum that seek these benefits. We can allocate these resources, and we can use them efficiently.
Definitely, you are absolutely right on that approach. So, Dr. Chauhan, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif assured World Bank of all-out government support and commitment in implementing the country partnership framework, urging unity among the politicians, experts, and the bureaucrats to achieve the framework ambitious targets. But the World Bank pointed out the governance challenges, the bureaucratic inefficiencies, transparency, accountability, and corruption issues, then frequent political and the policy changes that impacts the project implementation, and in any sort of the case, reduce the potential benefits and long-term collaboration and engagements as well. So how do you see that?
The World Bank is absolutely right, and it's the previous point we had raised, where the World Bank doesn't actually go out in the field and do things. It requires partners here, and how well those partners perform is a mixed bag. Some are very good, some not so much.
Because everybody has to play its part when it comes to the Pakistan's sustainable development.
That's right, absolutely. Now, in the longer run, having that execution done indigenously is more important, especially at the provincial level, district level. You have the funds to fill all the USAID programs, all the World Bank programs that existed. You don't need them to do this. In fact, there is I wouldn't call it a racket, but I would call it a certain disincentivization, which is that in 1961, when USAID was created, or 1945, there actually were desperately poor people in the third world. In West Pakistan, there was a lot of hunger. East Pakistan was even worse off. So there was a legitimate grievance and there was a requirement for such interventions, and they made the Green Revolution, etc. There were very nice things they did. Today, the standard at which they're measuring poverty is far, far ahead, because it's not the same world anymore. Now
Obviously
you're
it is.
poor because you don't have 2 mobile phones. You're lower middle class because you don't have 2 cars. Who had 2 cars in 1961 in this country? It's a moving target, and that's what makes it tricky, because the argument they need is that these are poor countries, we need to save them, we need to pay our own consultants to make ourselves relevant. In the long run, you don't need it, and this moving target logic means that we will never be a rich country because the target keeps going ahead of us.
You are absolutely right. Dr. Hassan, one last question, that no doubt that the World Bank country partnership framework is there, and that is lucrative, no doubt about that, but there are lots of benchmarks in that, and we have to attain and achieve each and every one. So do we have a strategy, and we are moving with a clear mindset that we are going to achieve this? And what about the real-time governance? Because actually that governance play a part in implementation of this framework.
Yes, thank you so much. Now, the real-time governance still has several challenges. Number one, we have not upgraded it to the next level that with modern technologies. As I pointed out before, we need to make a better use, more frequent use of technology, which includes the digital monitoring system. So that is lacking. We cannot rely on the old methods anymore. So that is one problem, because this complaint that comes from the IMF and the World Bank, that our bureaucracy is not performing. There are complaints about their inefficiency, in some instances incompetence. So these remain a challenge. So upgradation is one important thing. In short term, we can shift to the digital monitoring system. In the longer term, we need to educate our young people along these lines, so they can be equipped with modern knowledge, modern technologies when they come and start working in these areas. So there has to be a combination of short term, long term, and of course medium term strategies. And Unfortunately, I don't see those strategies on the table at the moment. We have not heard of any such thing. So I think that is the area in which the government needs to pay more attention. They need to work along these lines of human resource development.
You are absolutely right. Thank you very much, Dr. Hassan, for being with us online and very candid and elaborative views. Thank you very much, Dr. Usman Chauhan, for your presence here in the studios. Thank you very much, Dr. Shuja, for your presence. Viewers, as you have just listened to our panelists, no doubt that the World Bank initiative is vital for Pakistan's economy, but it is actually a technical assistance which the World Bank is providing to Pakistan, not a wholly solely solution to the problems. We have to search the solutions, the homegrown solutions for our domestic problems, and improving the human capital through the World Bank assistance is okay, but we have to practically implement these things in education, information technology and skill sector. Then investments and exports, we have to rise these, because these are the benchmarks to strengthen the economy. Energy reforms, lowering the circular debt, and toning down the energy cost to have a competitive business in Pakistan, to have diversified exports. As Dr. Shuja rightly pointed out, that we have a generation capacity of 45,000, we have transmission only 25,000, and in summers only 9,000. This is really unfortunate thing. We have to improve our efficiencies in all sectors. Then it comes to the digital monitoring. Systems must have to be in place to have a robust governance, the solid base for the governance. That is very important. The financial discipline, transparency, accountability, and corruption-free project implementation. That is necessary to get real-time outcomes. The government expenditures must have to be curtailed as well, because that is the area to address as well. And then terrorism and political instability, that is actually the linchpin and a real hurdle in development of Pakistan. Implementation of all policies through transparency in spendings as well. Poverty alleviation is key to success. That is also very important. And what Dr. Chauhan pointed out, the new poor, we have to save our youth from getting into poverty. That is very important. That is also important that climate change resilience must have to be there, and we have to curtail the environmental degradations. Although we require billions of funding, but we have to search for those resources and also generate from the domestic sources as well. We have to implement these investments in the information technology as well, because time is running out. We have to march forward. Talks, gossips and conversations, these are not enough. We have to take practical actions if we want to develop this country, Pakistan, as a developed and prosperous nation. This is all from today's Foresight. It's time to sign off. Allah Hafiz.